All right, this is me coming from the future. So just to kind of give you a little bit of info on the reason we are replacing his AC compressor. So your AC compressor has the clutch, and it has all the lines and all that stuff that kind of go with it. So the clutch itself is what engages and disengages to allow your AC to give you that cold air. So this should come up and down, like just ever so slightly. But I've already loosened this, so irrelevant. But the point is, we tried to take this off. He has an NB, so it is slightly different at the end of the day, but once you take that bolt off, 10 bolt, you can pop this off, and this is the clutch itself, this whole piece. So mine is, I'm pretty sure, not supposed to be in two pieces. It won't separate out, there it goes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to do this necessarily. This is an old one, so it just looks like it's completely torn up, but this is the original one that came with the car. So within this has a little shim. Some have probably more than one, but just a little piece right there. So we tried, his AC compressor was basically kicking on and off as we were driving. So you'd sit there and idle, it was fine, no big issues. You start driving for a little bit, starts kicking on and off, and you'll every 5 seconds. So you'd feel that. And we were trying to replace everything we could without having to replace the compressor. So didn't necessarily work out quite well for that, but he got a new compressor. We put the clutch from mine on his, didn't make a difference. Put the clutch from his new NB AC compressor on, that didn't make a difference. So we're thinking it's just the compressor. There was also, which you'll see in the video, and I called it out, there's a specific spot that seems like there was a bolt leaking, not on this, but on one of the connection points altogether. But yeah, just figured I'd give somebody a heads up on that in case they just decided they wanted to replace the compressor, and sometimes it might be the clutch. So I think I was looking it up online, you can kind of give this some power, and once you give it power, the clutch should kind of kick in and out overall. But last time I tried that, it just kind of shorted out, so I'm not really worried about it for this one. This one's old anyway. But yeah, you can take these off. If you're ever replacing your AC compressor and you take these lines off, just make sure everything lines up and it seats in properly, otherwise you'll cross thread it. That was the issue on the other one. We had to rethread it with an M6 by 1.0 thread pitch, and that seemed like it worked fine. So but that's just, figured I'd give somebody awareness as to why we were actually replacing that. Oh, and last but not least, if you ever need to take these off, it's pretty easy. Obviously I don't have my car here, but when I was going through it on his car, and I've taken it out of my own car, you get the 4 bolts right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are accessible. 2 are accessible in the engine bay up top with the power steering still attached. The other 2, it's probably easier just to lift the car up and then get to those. So as an FYI, just figured I'd give you guys a heads up. But if you ever get this far, or you're taking out your AC compressor, replace your O-rings. It will make your life a lot better because they get beat up. So, and this is the stuff, because in the AC compressor, when you get a new one, I forgot to say in there, it will not have, it may either come with refrigerant oil in it or compressor oil essentially in it, or it may not. So this is what you can use if you have not ever put compressor oil in. But there's just one of the holes. It should be this one. You can't see that because I'm in the light, but that top one is where you can fill it. But yeah, figured some people may not know that. So, and this is Joey's 2001 NB Miata. So we're just going to go through the process of taking the AC compressor off. It's pretty much the same for NAs and NBs. So of course, just kind of going through the motions, lifting everything up, getting it in the air, letting it cool down at the same time, giving it some time. That's the key, because you don't want to burn yourself while you're going through this process. So. then once we get it up in the air finally, and it's kind of cooled down, I'm still working on taking the under tray off. That way you have easy access to the bolts for the compressor, which I described in the beginning of this video too. And from here you can kind of see where the lines are going to the AC compressor already, but overall this just kind of gives you a visual of everything underneath the car. It makes it a little bit easier to see and think about as you're working through it. But we're basically going to the top originally just so we can get the belt off. We can actually move everything out of the way. You can, like I said, keep the power steering pump on. You just need to move it. Ours was kind of stuck, so the bolt that allows you to adjust it, you can just move it up and down a little bit. And that should work pretty well. And then once you have everything loose, that way you're able to move everything out of the way properly. You'll just get those 4 bolts that I was talking about earlier. Make sure there is a line that needs to be disconnected from the compressor itself. So if you can get access to that, it's just right on top. You can see it pretty clearly here. It should allow you to just drop this out from the bottom. That way you don't have to pull it through the top. Yeah, damn condenser bolt took the longest amount of time. On to the next thing. And just to give you an idea, this was leaking, so we had to tap this hole in order for this to work and retighten. This may have been where all our Freon was going. And this is the process that makes it a lot easier if you have 2 people. That way you can get the 2 bolts up top out of the way, and then I can work on the 2 bolts on the bottom while supporting the compressor. That way it doesn't drop. But if you're by yourself, I would recommend getting the bolts off the top and then getting the bolts off the bottom. That way you're able to pull it from the bottom out, and you can just have those bolts support you as you're going through it.
So the other thing I think I do need
Thing.
I gotta go. What size are you going?
XL.
Alright. Fine, then don't.
So now that everything's back in, we're just kind of getting up the bolts and thinking, we should probably not put the under tray back on just in case there's an issue or we need to replace something later. We'll just leave it off. So we were kind of talking about that for a second, and then we just kind of cleaned everything up, got ready to put the car back on the ground so that way he can leave. And then in the morning, he's going to go ahead and get the AC compressor or the lines filled. And then that way we can just make sure it's not leaking, see if there's any other issues, see if we need to get back under there. And then if not, we'll put the under tray back on and we should be set and good to go. One less thing to worry about. And at this point, we're just going through making sure all the lug nuts in the front are torqued correctly. Before they were really, really tight. Couldn't take them off with an impact. So I was kind of surprised by that. So we basically broke them loose before we put it back in the air the first time. So I'm just making sure that we torque them down for the next time. That way we don't have to worry about that same issue, because that is a common thing. And then we'll have some snapped lug nuts. So of course, after hearing that noise, we have to take a look at everything just to double check. It couldn't really tell what it was. It might still be the clutch itself. It might just need another spacer in between, which is what I was showing in the beginning of this video. But we ended up just spraying it down with a little bit of like WD-40, essentially to kind of loosen up everything. I'm pretty sure it was just the belt, but I asked him earlier today just to see if he had any issues driving it back, and everything was quiet. There was no screeching after the fact, so. Another successful evening. But yeah, that's it for this one. Hopefully the car, I say it like every week, hopefully the car will be ready next week and then we can finally throw all this stuff back in there, but we're just waiting for paint. That's about it. I keep hearing good news, so hopefully we'll see you here shortly. But until then, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. Peace.
I'm about to get it, no takebacks. Do my thing like I'm bringing 88 back. I'ma shoot my shot and I'ma make that. Got 'em all but hurt and they hate that. I don't talk much, but I stay